Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is a sore sight to many Zimbabweans. In 2008, this was a commonplace sight. Big supermarkets like a OK with their shelves completely empty. And it is unbelievable that we are back again to that. This is a nightmare. Ben.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. I mean, this should be something that it shouldn't come as a surprise. We know the state of our economy right now. We know that the level of corruption that is happening at the moment is at an unprecedented level. So, to me, I am not very shocked to find that the informal sector has swallowed up the formal sector. The writing was on the wall for years now. And we must remember human beings adapt. If you create harsh conditions, they will adapt. Just like water will find a way to flow out. Human beings adapt. And now, unfortunately, you know, the formal sector is in a mess, is in a shambles. Years and years of neglect. The writing, like I said, was on the wall, but we chose to ignore it.
Yeah, I think what has got to be said here is that the government, as usual, is trying to find scapegoats. They're now saying they're blaming the whole thing to proliferation of smuggled goods. The truth of the matter is, these people are trying to survive the best way they can, whichever way they can. In a country where unemployment has been 80% plus, it is not surprising that the informal sector has become a strong player. Everybody now is in the informal sector. The trouble with the informal sector is that it is near impossible to regulate. Most of these people have got very little. Their entire stock is no more than what they've got in their basket for the day. A few worth maybe $100, that's it. No nation can thrive under those conditions. Those people are living from hand to mouth. The country should have revived the economy, and that has not happened. When Mnangagwa got into office following the 2017 military coup, he was cocksure he was going to kickstart the economy. His Zimbabwe is open for business. He was sure was going to attract investors. They were going to flood in and kickstart the economy. It didn't happen. For one thing, Mnangagwa promised to stamp out corruption. He failed to do so. He promised to hold free, fair, and credible elections. 2018 elections were rigged, a clear sign that Zimbabwe was still a pariah state. And therefore, then we should not be surprised that the economy has struggled on these last 7 years and is back to intensive care unit. This is just a nightmare.
I mean, we cannot ignore. I'll give you an example. We had Zimbabwe, passenger bus company, Zupco, if I may say, that had been running, and servicing different areas for quite some time in the 90s. And that they struggled until it became no more. And then after that, we had, the informal, modes of transport or, come up. We had the combis. Now we have the latest, the Mashika Shikas. And I now know, that they have now introduced, these borders, these small little bicycles, or whatever, that are now ferrying people around. All these are warning signs. The warning signs, like I said, have been there that Zimbabwe is no longer, running, a strong and healthy and functioning economy. Everything has gone, to dealings underneath the table. This is where the problem is. It starts with corruption. They drain the life out of well-established organizations and institutions. And after that, they use that same funding that they've drained from good, well-run businesses to push their own little, businesses or the informal businesses there. Mark my words, behind all these informal, tuck shops, musikas and everything, the ones that are flourishing the most, there is somebody from the top that is involved, that is funding it. You have, so many, the gold sector, it's all informal. Who is at the heart of it? Mnangagwa's children. If you try and sell gold today, by the end of the day, you'll be arrested. But they have their runners that have been selling for years and years and years. Some get arrested and they pop up tomorrow. Corruption is at the heart of the problem. And if we do not address corruption, and mind you, I must say it has reached levels unseen before, way worse than what it was with the Mugabe era. We are in serious, serious trouble. And I feel sorry for the likes of OK, Spa, and unfortunately, Choppies, has already gone belly up. It's already done. The likes of Spa, they are suffering. They cannot keep up because it's now so expensive for them to do business. And the tuck shops, they simply just smuggle goods across, pay the next guy to keep quiet, and business as usual. And the other guys, the OKs, have to pay taxes. And make matters worse, they have to sell their goods in local currency. They are suffering. And I at the rate at which it's going, Imagine losing, the likes of OK. That's a big chain. That's a big retail outlet. To hear that it has gone belly up, it has closed shop, it will send shock waves in the whole economy. Because not only does government get anything, get taxes and money from their operation, but people rely on them as a safe, place to go and get, your day to day, meals and stuff like that. It's really sad. It's and scary as well.
This is a nightmare we know will continue. And meanwhile, of course, somebody keeps wittering about Vision 2030. And the ordinary Zimbabweans are being coerced into supporting it. Vision 2030 says Zimbabwe will be an upper middle income nation by 2030. This is in 5 years' time. And yet, at the present moment, the country's economy is in serious trouble. Our roads have got potholes. Most of our cities, the sewage and water supply have all but collapsed. Our education and healthcare have all but collapsed. And yet somebody is still determined that he is the best the country has in terms of leadership to deliver this Vision 2030. Vision 2030 is a mirage. And as long as we have got this ZANU-PF dictatorship, a pariah state, there will be no meaningful economic recovery, and the country will be launching from pillar to post with absolutely no hope of ever getting out. So I would like to reiterate the solution to Zimbabwe's economic and political crisis. We should have free, fair, and credible elections. We had the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms during the 2008 to 2013 GNU. We failed to implement even one token reform. Most significantly, when the MDC leaders realized that they had sold out during the GNU, they decided to change the tune. They told their followers they did not need democratic reforms because they could win rigged elections. And so since 2013, the nation has been participating in these flawed elections on the false belief that the opposition can win rigged elections. Nelson Chamisa lied in the 2023 elections, for instance, saying that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to con his supporters to participate in those flawed elections. The people of Zimbabwe have been slow to realize that they are being conned. It is shocking that some out there still refuse to accept that Chamisa conned them. The truth is, he did con them. And the failure to accept That simple reality is at the heart of why Zimbabwe is still stuck. Because that lie in 2023 was not the first time he said it. He lied in 2018. If people had switched on then and realized it, they would have avoided being conned to participate in 2023. Because when you participate after you've been warned that these elections are flawed and you still insist to participate, the message is very simple. You've taken a gamble and you've lost. And some people have been saying, oh, why didn't SADC, for instance, deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy? Why should SADC do that when you yourself are the ones who insisted in participating in these flawed elections? At the present moment, Zimbabwe is facing the 2028 elections, which ZANU-PF is trying to avoid by pushing through a constitutional amendment to allow the party to postpone elections. The fight has shifted from elections to referendum. The only hope of stopping the referendum, the amendment going through, is not participating, is by making sure we do not participate in a flawed process. There will be pressure to participate. Opposition leaders are already queuing up, saying that they will campaign for a no vote and ZANU-PF will be defeated. Why would you participate in a process that is so flawed, so illegal, that SADC, the AU, they've condemned it? Surely the rational position is to stand up and say, no, we are not going to participate in a flawed process. It is for ZANU-PF, they've got a legal obligation to the nation to make sure that elections are free, fair, and credible. These referendums are free, fair, and credible, and are a true reflection of the democratic wishes of the people of Zimbabwe. If we already have evidence that ZANU-PF rigged 2023 elections, SADC have confirmed it, AU have confirmed it, why are we agreeing to go in a referendum which we know ZANU-PF is rigging? Indeed, they've already started rigging. The party has already secured the 2/3 majority in parliament and in the Senate by bribing opposition leaders and politicians and MPs and senators, etc. This is the battleground. We should know how to respond to it. The issue of the economy, the empty shelves, will only be solved once we have solved the political problem underlying these problems. As long as ZANU-PF remains in power, as long as Zimbabwe remains a pariah state, these economic challenges will come back again and again and again. It's high time we did the right thing for a change. Focus on returning the people's power to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. That is the number one priority right now. Thank you very much. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
Thank you. In closing, I would want to say there is no vision 2030. There was never vision 2030. I'll give you a practical example. right? Somebody says they want to bake you a cake. You would expect to see ingredients being laid out. There are no ingredients towards building Vision 2030, 5 years after its mention. It cannot just pop up overnight and then, voila, you have Vision 2030 or you have your cake. And the signs are clear as day. If you see okay empty like that, how do you build on a vision, on emptiness? We have to ask ourselves, where are the ingredients to show that we are moving towards an upper middle income when 90% of the people are unemployed and are running, the informal sector? How then do you measure your progress towards that attaining that vision? So I believe there needs to be a foundation for us to be able to attain such a vision, an upper middle income economy. There has to be the groundwork, there has to be a foundation upon which we can build, towards that progress. There is nothing. 5 years after Mnangagwa took over, ladies and gentlemen, like what Wilbert said there, we have to dig deep to the root cause of our problem. And our problem is more political than any other. Our political environment is rotten, and we need to chop that off. And then only we can start thinking about fixing the economy and the other sectors. With that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Thank you very much for those of you who were able to join us. I hope you'll be able to do so again in future. 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. I posted a link there, which I'm sorry it was late, but in future I'll try to make sure that we post it very early on for those of you who may want to join and have their say in the discussion. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and I hope you'll be able to do it again in the future. Good night.